everyone, and welcome to Dr. Judy's WTF. And everybody, this is a call-in show, so please do call in. I love to get to know my audience, and of course, we're going to do a lot of mind mapping tonight. Specifically, we're going to be mind mapping overcoming codependency on a narcissist. And we're going to look at the dance of dysfunction. We're going to look at healthy core sense of self versus unhealthy core sense of self, how the two fit together like hand in glove. And let's just start out by saying that they're both not healthy in their relationship to the self. I'm Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I am the founder of the Mind Map system for healing human disconnect. I'm also the director over at the Psychological Healing Center. We have a beautiful staff of people, and pretty soon we're going to be adding on the service of EMDR, something that I'm going to talk a little bit about as a treatment for trauma. It is definitely not a substitute for mind map therapy. However, sometimes people are so traumatized, they need immediate intervention, and it's just a good idea if there's a trauma to get in there quickly and do some 911 emergency of dismantling the effects on the psyche. So tonight's show is about this dance of dysfunction between the narcissist and the codependent. So let's go back to panel number 1, which is really a metaphor for childhood wounds. Well, it's really a metaphor for all kinds of things because the mind map is rich in metaphor. But if you look at panel 1, you will see the light in the background, which represents our healthy self, our potential to self-actualize, as Maslow would put it, and then those shadows that compromise the self. In my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect, which I really encourage you to all grab a copy of, and the book is really going to connect the dots for you. So please pick it up and download it. It's free. The PDF is free. If you want a hard copy, you can definitely order it on Amazon.com. But those dots all over the light represent the compromised sense of self. So we've got two people in a relationship that have both been compromised, probably in similar, maybe different ways. And one comes out with this tremendous need to fix everybody. And the other one comes out with this tremendous need to take, and to fill the hole in the soul with whatever gifts that the codependent is going to shower them with. And I don't really mean actual gifts. I mean gifts of attention, gifts of just underscoring how great they are and putting all attention on them. And so what happens in these relationships is, because we have two unhealthy people, they usually start devolving. So I want to hear from you. I'm sure there are people out there who feel that they've been in a codependent relationship or are codependents, people who have had to feed the narcissist, and we all know what happens when that goes on for a long time. And we will talk about complex PTSD, because at the end of the journey of being involved with somebody who is demeaning, devaluing, and oftentimes trying to discard and then starting the cycle all over again, what people end up with is a tremendous amount of stress in their body, a tremendous amount of emotional dysregulation, and anxiety and depression, and all kinds of really, really harsh symptoms. So going back to panel 1, what happened? Why is the codependent bent on fixing the narcissist? Well, I have this this theory in mind, and I think other people would confirm that when we are groomed in a certain way, we tend to continue the pattern, and then we continue to select partners that are going to fit our groove. And then we're going to do what I call the WTF. So let me explain what the WTF is so that you are clear. It's not just a funny title of my show. It actually stands for a concept of the repetition principle. It's the what the Freud. And what the Freud is the repetitive pattern of repeating old childhood patterns and repeating them onto partners in the here and now, and then actually trying to fix something that was broken a long time ago and fix it with a partner that represents that human disconnect. And then the end game is, wow, if I could change that narcissist, if I can get them to be an empath, if I can get them fixed, then I win some sort of prize. And the prize it is a prize. It's an unconscious prize and an unconscious wish that everything is going to be repaired, and that mommy in a kind of a template form, or daddy in a template or blueprint form is going to be fixed. And then if they're okay, then I'm going to be okay. But if they're not okay, I'm going to work really, really hard to make sure that they are okay so that I can be okay. So again, I would love to hear from you, and I am happy to take a call as I'm talking and describing codependency and narcissism. So what is codependency? It's similar in narcissism, is in that it's an undeveloped sense of self. So the codependent has to lean on another person to derive their sense of self. They have to depend on another to get that solid core feeling within, because there is no solid core feeling within. Now, the narcissist also has a compromised, injured sense of self. It's just that their way is to be held up by the codependent and esteemed by the codependent so that they can continue to invest in their grandiose sense of self. And so you can see that it's a really unhealthy, what the Freud feeding machine here. So going back to panel number one, let's talk about John Bowlby and attachment and what happens there and what doesn't happen there and why people come out bruised and compromised. So I tend to concentrate on 5 wounds. The 5 wounds of childhood are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, and smothering, controlling. And so when we come out bruised and abused, what happens is that we don't fully develop a really healthy sense of self. So in the case of narcissism, what typically happens is they have what is referred to as anxious avoidant attachment. So somewhere in there, they learn that people are really not safe. People are really not empathic and loving and unconditional. And so why not just play another game of life called control? And why not play a game of life where instead of being vulnerable, let's engage with people who can, that we can take from. And this is blueprinted way back in early childhood through young childhood and adolescence. And so we see a pattern of anxious and avoidant attachment. So that narcissist is pulling away, whereas the codependent is a little bit more loose in the boundaries. I'm not going to say borderline here, but more on the other side of the spectrum, where they are very, very vulnerable and very, very open and open to being hurt, whereas the narcissist is so defended that they close their hearts down and they put a wall up, and so they can play the game of life of control easier, whereas the codependent is still yearning for that approval and attention and so forth, but the consciousness is behind it is that they want to fix, because if they fix, they are convinced that they will not be abandoned, and that's just their role in life. So if you look at that panel one, then if we go back to what it takes to have a healthy human psyche, what it really takes is all the mirroring and attunement and unconditional love and a safe family where the system is a partnership between the primary parents and they hold up the fort, so to speak, and then the children can grow and flourish along this system gone right. But not everybody gets to have a system gone right. And so in panel two, which represents the cracked lens of perception, both the codependent and the narcissist have a cracked lens of perception of the world. Because again, the codependent has a cracked lens that looks more like, again, if I fix the person, everything is going to be okay. And I have a weak inner core. And so I need to lean on somebody. And the deal is I'm going to fix them and I'm going to shield their flailing ego. And in exchange, we're going to have some sort of a relationship.
We
And
have a
it
caller.
doesn't turn into a very good relationship. And I would love to take the caller. Hi, welcome to the show. What is your name, please? Hi, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, welcome to the show. What is your name, please?
I'm going to give you Marie.
Okay, I appreciate you calling. Can you talk a little bit louder? I could barely hear you.
Hello?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
Okay, I'm good. Thank you so much for calling in. What's been on your mind in relationship to codependency and narcissism?
Hmm. Um, I am a codependent, and
Okay,
it's been something that I've realized in the past probably 5 years.
okay.
It's just been it's a struggle because you're learning all the time.
Yeah, and,
So,
and and there's so much information out there so that you can tune in and glean all of this knowledge. And so, how do you know you're codependent? What what uh, what are you tuned into about yourself that allows you to think that you are or know that you are?
narcissistic and familiar to me because my parents both were.
Okay, they were narcissistic.
Hmm.
Okay, does that mean that they were lacking empathy?
Oh, yeah, everything, yeah.
Okay, does that mean that they were trying to control you
Yes,
and devalue you?
yes.
Okay, and so in this system gone wrong, the narcissistic system, which I see as a system of that has the consciousness of apathy behind it, which is one of the most painful experiences a human being can be immersed in. If there's an atmosphere of "I don't care about you," that's harsh,
Mm,
very
it
harsh.
does. It hurts.
Very, very hard. And so, what do you do to try to fix that?
Mm. It's really hard because I have post-traumatic stress. Well, I guess complex post-traumatic stress.
Yes. Okay.
And
And
it's difficult. I have two children, and just
mhm.
it's funny when you don't know what happened and what it does to you when you're, raising your kids, and then you
Yes,
find out what the problem is. It's overwhelming and it's hard to not fix because you kind of literally have to retrain your brain, but um,
absolutely.
it's a very hard thing, all of it.
Are you still in a relationship with somebody with narcissistic?
No, but I've had to cut off family, and just it seems like every relationship, it's like, oh wow, another one. Like it feels like that's all that's out here,
You
you
know,
know.
what state you live in?
I'm in Delaware.
Delaware. Okay. All right. Well, there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who've been injured at the causal level, who do not have proper mirroring and attunement and unconditional love and all of the things that the attachment theorists talk about. And so, in your case, were both your parents narcissists?
I think that my mom definitely, I don't, either borderline or narcissism, but
Okay.
and then my dad, I believe histrionic possibly,
Okay. So
narcissistic too.
let me ask you, Laurie, do you think that your mother was more concerned about being abandoned or more concerned about hiding a weak sense of self by puffing up and looking perfect and grandiose? What do you think was going on?
I think she was both.
Oh,
I think
interesting.
she,
And
she
again,
wanted to
I'm sorry.
cover up the way she was. She wanted to cover up the way that she was,
Okay.
and portray a different way of the family to everyone else.
Uh,
And at home, it was just like chaos.
okay. So there was a mask of grandiosity. Yes.
Hmm.
And then there
Yeah.
was the dysregulated borderline. Was she flying
Oh,
into
yeah.
rage? Yes.
Oh, yeah. Really. Yep.
Okay. And so where that put you, and one of the things you mentioned is the complex PTSD. And I call it complex PTSD is because PTSD is more like an incident that that you're hit with, like somebody putting a gun to your head, or a rape, or some a war, an earthquake, or something that's a trauma. Complex PTSD is chronic.
Yeah.
Okay.
She actually, like my reality was always like, like just tampered with. Like, I had been sexually assaulted by someone, and she told me that almost like, um, a gaslight that didn't happen, or you shouldn't have been there.
Wow. I'm sorry.
So that kind of stuff too. You know what I mean?
That's
It's
a
really
big
odd.
gaslight. That's a big gaslight.
Yeah, that's huge. That hurts.
Yeah. So
But I mean, I'm not really the victim mode, but I'm trying to fix myself. Like it's impossible. Like it's very hard to fix this. You know?
oh yeah,
It's
I
really
know.
hard.
I spent my life designing a system to heal human disconnect and heal the hole in the soul. And so we'll get to the fixed part, but first of all, I want you to understand that if you continue to stay in an abusive situation, then you're going to basically soak in the toxins. And let's talk for a minute about CPTSD because I printed out all of these symptoms of trauma, okay? Complex
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, experiencing childhood neglect, experiencing other types of abuse early in life, experiencing domestic abuse, violence, experiencing human trafficking, being a prisoner of war, living in a region affected by war. Okay, so you get the drift that that complex PTSD is chronic, and when we stay in this horrific, poisonous atmosphere, it's going to take a toll on our mind, our body, and our soul. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And in codependent relationships, what happens is that the codependent tries to fix the injurer. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that. Can you relate to that? You were,
I Yeah, yeah. Like for my whole life, I was in relationships and friendships even,
mm,
and didn't realize what I was doing or what I was even like. But I was always trying to fix, or they would pull away. What's wrong? That kind of thing. And now I'm learning that I'll see that now in people that come into my life. I'll notice that they're um I don't know, I'll notice all of the behaviors of the toxic people. So it's like I get away from it and I'm like, I'm done with them. But it's like, then I feel like I'm alone here in this world, you know?
yeah.
Like, so where's the normal people? Where are they?
Yeah, where are all the normal people? And that's one of the challenges is that once you pull out of a system that is hurting you, a toxic system, then
Yeah, so I'm starting to see all that and be able to push that away because I see it now, and I see it early, and they don't like that you see it because you calling out on it, you know.
mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
I'm just like I'm trying to find where's the people that I do want in my life.
Okay,
Where
so
are they?
let's start from the beginning. So healthy dependency creates healthy independence. Okay, if you don't have healthy dependency, if you don't have parents that love you unconditionally and nurture you and create a safe zone for you, if you have a mother who says, "I don't believe that you've been raped," I mean that's just a horrible example of the consciousness of I really don't want to be bothered. Maybe even
Right
if
now,
you
it's like
were,
be quiet.
yeah,
We don't
be
want anybody
quiet,
to know that.
go away, take your problems elsewhere. Okay, so look,
Yeah.
childhood is a toxic situation. And why is it well, yeah, toxic? I had a Freudian slip there. A hostage situation, and sometimes a toxic and hostage situation. And so we can't help the home that we are born into. And as babies and children, we are at the effect of our family system, and we're at the effect of multi generations of family systems. And so, what do? Is we try to mold ourselves to what is. And as Alice Miller says, we would rather blame ourselves and try to be the good girl or the good boy and fix and please and try to get the system to work again, because that's the only home we have. And so, what choice do we have? And so, with codependency, there's never this strong, healthy, independent core sense of self. And there's never a chance for that individual to separate and individuate. A very, very important term that Dr. Murray Bowen talks about. Separation and individuation begins where at first the mother and the infant are merged, and then pretty soon the mother and the infant, the mother provides all of those nutrients, both physical and emotional nutrients. And so the child is able to start to separate and grow and go through an individuation process, and then eventually form a healthy core sense of self. Okay. And if that doesn't occur, then there's this need to be leaning on another human being. And insofar as the narcissist is concerned, they have a need to be feeding on someone. So do you see, both have a hole in the soul? Okay. So there's a leader and then there's a feeder, and they get together, and neither one of them are really growing internally. They're just kind of like, one is trying to glom onto the other, and then the other is trying to suck out all of the compliments and so on from the codependent. And because it's an endless.
It's amazing how we all go through like similar traumas, but some people decide to do it this way, and then other people do it the other way.
Yep. It's carved out of the same stone. Okay, it's an injury to the self, to the core sense of self. It expresses differently. Again, with the borderline and the more loose boundaries, it expresses itself as a fear of abandonment, and then it looks very clingy and fixer-ish. Okay, yes, you can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
And then with the narcissist, it looks like a control and manipulation and apathy and huffing and puffing and looking good in the public eye, right? And I did a show called
having to be indifferent. The indifference is a huge red flag. They have to be indifferent.
Right, and I want you to understand, Laura, what's really going on is I did a show on this. It was called The Double Mask of Narcissism. I'm really glad I did that show.
I saw that.
You did see that. Okay, so you understand that there are all these layers. So layer number one is the love bombing. Look how great I am. I'm an amazing, generous, charming, intelligent, successful person. And then that covers up the anger, right? And the lack of empathy, and just the lack of ability to really be vulnerable and relate to another human being. And then if you take that mask off, what's behind it is the scared child that's underdeveloped and is afraid to be discovered. Okay? And exposed. How embarrassing. How embarrassing. You know, my favorite story. Yep. I was just going to say that it's sort of like the story of the emperor has no clothes. Remember, the emperor was duped into thinking that the merchants have made him this beautiful cloak of silk and satin and fur and gold and all this, and then the merchants are telling the dwellers in the city that if you don't see how beautiful the emperor is, then you're sick, or you're crazy, or you're stupid, or you're wrong. So when the emperor comes out, they're all going, wow, amazing, look at the emperor, look how sparkly he looks, look at those beautiful golden shoes and those diamond buttons. And then the little boy says, Mommy, the emperor has no clothes. The emperor has no clothes. Okay, we know the story. Many of us do. So why am I telling you this story? Is because there's this secret pact going on. The narcissist doesn't want anybody to know that underneath the grandiose self is this big empty shell. Okay? And the codependent. Pardon me?
I'm glad that I didn't go that. You know, I'm not sure how we go these routes in life, you know,
yes.
But all I know is I'm glad that I'm a codependent because I have a self. Like, I know I do, you know?
And you have
empathy.
Okay.
And I have empathy like anything, yes.
Okay. So now I think you figured it out. I'm underscoring what I think you figured out, which is that nobody can heal another person's wound by stuffing their hole in the soul, or sucking dry their spirit to fill their hole in the soul. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't, yes.
No. Okay, so how do we go back and heal? This is the trick here. So, all right, so we enter into these relationships, and then we're compromised.
I'm 40 years old. Can you please help me out at this point? I'm like, oh my goodness, like 40 years old. I'm like, I'm really trying to figure this out, you know? It's like, I don't know. It's very hard. You feel like you're getting better and better, and then it's like, boom, you run into somebody else. And you're like, okay,
I'm going
back
to tell you the
square
secret.
one.
I'm going to tell you the secret, okay? It's no secret because my material is all over the web, and the book is free, and you can have access to it. So the secret is that you have to go back to the cause. You can't work these things through in a dysfunctional relationship. So step number one, pull out of the dysfunctional relationship, or just push it aside and go back to your own wounds of childhood and reprocess the feelings so that you don't repattern after them, you don't implode on them and get sick, you don't explode on them and project and vomit all of your pain on other people, and you don't pass it to the next generation, which is a huge goal of the mind map system, so that we stop the multi-generational psycho virus with the emphasis on psycho. So the buck stops here. So we've got to go back to those childhood wounds and through therapy, open them up once again. And no, we're not doing years of analysis here, but we are going back to those wounds so that we could see what's in there, the reactions, the poor encodings, the poor lies and misperceptions and conceptions that we have of the world. And then we have to dismantle a system gone wrong and reprocess the pain. And it's only through reprocessing the pain and bringing that file up and closing the file that we can truly heal. Okay, do you see? So no amount of fixing another person, no amount of stuffing your feelings down, no amount of sucking dry from other people and filling your hole in the soul with drugs, sex, rock and roll, and alcohol and whatever, and whatever people do, because there are tons of defense mechanisms. Ultimately, to heal, you've got to get down to that pain point. And why do narcissists not come to therapy? Because they're scared. They've got a lot to hide. So they will come to therapy. Pardon me?
They have a lot of shame. I'm sure they have tons of shame.
Yes, a lot of shame. And so they don't want to be discovered because they want to look good to the therapist. So I've had people come in and they sound so smart. Oh, I know what my problem is. I know all about my childhood wounds. I'm not going to go through that again. Okay, so what's the problem with this picture? Is that their head.
They don't want to open up. They don't want to give.
They don't. No, their heads know, but they don't want to go vulnerable. And I don't blame them.
Right.
I don't blame them.
Right.
Because they don't want to go vulnerable because trust has been.
It's a shame because they're going to live their whole lives that way, and on the deathbed, they're going to really try and be like, I can just see it, my parents. I mean, I don't know. It's just a shame.
It's such a shame, and I wish I could say that at their deathbeds they crack and go vulnerable.
No, they don't. I'm sure they don't.
Usually not. We're all waiting for that paradigm shifting moment where they look at you and go, honey, I realize what I've done. Oh my God, my eyes have opened. In the moment of death, I see the light and I see how much I've hurt you. And I'm going down on my knees to beg for forgiveness. That ain't happening. And if it does, it's
no, it's not. And that's what we have to know. We have to know that too. Like, don't ever think that they're going to do that, because it's not going to happen. And if it's said, maybe it's just said, but it's not meant.
No, it's not. That's right. Because remember, they have to cut their heart out. Why?
Because they can't love either. There's no love there. There's no real love. So
nope, there's no role modeling for love. Or their parents use them as an object and use them in the service of their needs and their feelings. So that's what I mean by narcissism, really, is a system where the parents put their own needs before the child. Okay? And they get with the codependent because the codependent puts the narcissist's needs before their own. And both are in a system gone wrong. And then they get together and they can kind of do the dance for a while, but eventually it's not sustainable and the system is going to collapse. So I just want to give other people the opportunity to call in.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you.
And thank you so much for sharing. And I think you're on it. And now the next step is for you to get vulnerable and for you to have some truth dialogues. And I do invite you to call the Psychological Healing Center. We have some wonderful people on staff who are trained therapists, and they're trained in the mind map system, and they're very, very savvy in the area of complex PTSD, and particularly interested in helping people recover from narcissistic abuse. So please be in touch, okay?
Definitely will. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for opening up so that I can illustrate what what these points are. Very, very important that people wake up and start understanding. So appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Good night. Okay, so good night. Okay, so if you want to call in, please do. So do you see this?
We have another caller.
Oh, great. Okay, I just love talking to people as opposed to monologuing, so I appreciate it. And what is your name, please?
Hello, my name is Robert P.
Robert, I appreciate you calling in. And how do you relate to the subject?
I'm from the Chicago area, by the way. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm very codependent. I like how you answered the question that I had was, can we get better when we're still with the person that we're giving ourselves to, and you were like, no, you can't. And I really has been going through this for a long time. The person I deal with is my mother, unfortunately.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm supposed to, it's like what inspired me to call a long time ago was you had a caller that said that, they were kind of like the Cinderella. And I remember when I told my cousin my story, that's what he told me. He's like, you sound like Cinderella, dude. I'm like, wow. Yeah. I have, two brothers. I was surrounded with two brothers who were very abusive. Mm-hmm. And my mother was, very, not only physically abusive, but, just very emotionally neglectful. She was taught like from the farm, from the ranchos, like, you don't have no emotions, and the more you hit the kid, that's how you feed them. That's how you feed the soul. And so I was very much a scapegoat. I was very isolated, and I've been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and mild agoraphobia. And for your callers, agoraphobia is the fear of the marketplace. Is an anxiety disorder. It's characterized by a lot of avoidance.
But let me do you a grand favor here and tell you what I tell everybody who comes to my office, which is that these symptoms, it's not like you have depression and anxiety and agoraphobia. These are your reactions to your wounds. Okay? And
Very true.
The problem with traditional psychotherapy is they'll send you off to a depression specialist and then an anxiety specialist and then desensitize you from agoraphobia and then pick on this symptom and that symptom. And I am not a fan. I'm just not a fan, because I'm a fan of going back to the cause, because once you get a hold of the cause, guess what? The symptoms are explainable. And the symptoms are not the problem. They're the outcome of the problem. And the problem is dysregulation and apathy and scapegoatism and all the damage that was set in motion by your mother and reinforced by your father, or maybe not even, I don't know.
Omission.
Thank you. Act of omission.
You're welcome.
Yes. So this is a system gone wrong, and you're at the effect of the system, which looks like anxiety and depression, and the agoraphobia is a perfect defense mechanism, because if you stay home, you won't meet people like this, correct?
Correct.
Right? So
what was defense, yeah.
What a great idea, okay, but not, because our defense mechanisms. Robert, am I correct? Your name is Robert?
Yeah, I like to say it's not who we are, but it's just our challenges. It's a challenge we have, and like you mentioned, totally. I mean, in the time it worked. It was how I protected myself. It's how I survived.
Right. Okay. So here's what the mind map system will help you with: is instead of using defense mechanisms that are no longer necessarily needed, because your mother's not in this moment abusing you and hitting you and neglecting you, correct?
It's very passive aggressive, and I've always been her punching bag, and she's not. Even when the pandemic started, I got really sick. I got the flu really bad. It wasn't CV. And, I almost fainted. I was cleaning up the house and doing all the work and trying to chip in, and I almost fainted. And I was like, you know what? You got this codependency issue. You give yourself permission, have self-compassion, and, you can sit this one out. It's okay. And like she tried to destroy my phone, which was my only link to the outside world. And she even called the cops. And she accused me of abusing her, and she tried to tell them, I remind her of her ex-husband, which is my father. And that's where I was at the brink, the precipice of being like, I'm holding my own. I have self-respect, and she ramped it up, almost a false police report. And it still kind of happens, which to answer your question.
So look, you had a lot of projection on you. You were triggering her because you reminded of your father, and she wouldn't have it that you weren't going to behave codependently and take some time to get better on your own, because her weak core sense of self needed the feed. Understood? Okay.
Yeah, I hear that.
Okay, there's just that you were her drug, and then on the other hand, you needed to fix her. Remember that book? I just love the title. Don't ask me about the book because I honestly don't remember, but it was called I'm okay, you're okay. I think it was more of a humanistic or transaction. Maybe it was Fritz Perls. I might be totally wrong here. I stand corrected if I am. I'm corrected if I am, but I love the title because I think that's sort of like what you had going on. Mommy, if you're okay, then I'll be okay. And you know what? If you're not okay, I'm not okay. But I'm going to take it on myself to make you okay so that I can be okay. What a job.
Yeah, even in college, it really, because I stayed home to save money, and I thought it would be a smart idea, and I couldn't even do my homework. I would just do circles around my laptop and and even when I want to go to the gym, that's one thing I try to practice on it's my agoraphobia and taking self-care. And I would be so afraid to, okay, you got to clean, you got to do the dishes, you have to do something, water the grass, do something. You can't leave. And I still, to this day, I'm still struggling with that.
Well, I want to delve into the agoraphobia a little bit, and can you see that the agoraphobia was sort of like a way for you to stay stuck in staying home and caring for your mother? Okay, so that agoraphobia actually was part of the system for keeping you stuck in your Cinderella role. It was your prison. That's the prison. That's the psychological prison. So develop a phobia so that you can have a reason to stay home, even though on some level you don't really want to, but on another level you feel that you have to, because if you don't stay home, your mother might decompensate and she's your source. And that's what I call a toxic tie, you see?
Wow, I never looked at it like that. I mean, I kind of wondered in the back of my head, but I never... you just very validated that right now.
I want you to see it that way, that it's all about fixing her and creating all these ways of locking you into this psychological prison so that you can serve and serve and serve. And if you stay home and you're agoraphobic, well, perfect. You can continue to serve and concentrate on her and close down the world. And anyway, here's the second part of it is, oh my God, what if the world is just like her? Oh, I'm so tired of cleaning here. Maybe it's better that I don't get another narcissist in the picture, because now I'm going to have to clean for two people. Oh my God, I'm so tired. And on top of it, I'm sick. I have the flu. Okay, so do you see how interesting the unconscious is?
Yeah, and I would be very transactional with my relationships. That I had friends that would kind of take advantage of how I would clean, and even with my relationships with women, I feel like I have to perform and very transactional. I have to perform. I have to do this and do that, and instead of just being in a partnership where somebody cares about me and I care about them.
That's what I would call synergy. Okay. And synergy is panel 7. So I'll jump to the good part. The good part is when you have a nice core sense of self and you pair up with somebody who has a nice core sense of self, and you guys get together because you feel good. Your cup is full. And now you can share the goodness and share your light with another human being. And what do you get? More light. More synergy. Nobody's sucked dry. Nobody's tired of serving. Nobody's serving or being served. It's synergistic. Sometimes you're being served, sometimes you're serving, but not in an unbalanced way where you both are compromised and stunted in your psychological and physical and spiritual growth. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Totally. It sounds beautiful. It's nirvana, right?
It really
Well,
is.
not around, but you know.
It
Yeah.
really is beautiful. And so I invite you to do this work. It's beautiful work. I love to do it. My staff loves to do it. We do it in 10 sessions and follow up. And why does it take 10 sessions when traditional therapy takes 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, you know, on the couch and whatever is going on? Because we get down to it. We're not going to waste therapeutic time getting to know you for 2 months. We're just going to ask all the right questions and lead you on a path to healing. And one of the things that keeps us stuck in the psychological prison is what you refer to as a negative core belief. The core belief that if I don't please, then what's going to happen to you?
I'm going to go into the bad boy box, the penalty box for me.
Right. You're going to go into the penalty box and nobody's going to love you because you're not useful. Do you see how objectifying that is? If you don't perform, you're not useful. And that's what I call a human doing, not a human being. So however you were brought up, you were encouraged to be a human doing. And that's what...
I'm sorry, but it feeds the isolation because, like, I look at other people and a part of me say, hey, why don't you connect with this person? And says, well, you're a loser. You have nothing to offer. What are you going to do? You know, you should just protect yourself and shut down. I like how Crispin talks about how he has patients who do isolation and play video games and, and go to substances. And I was like, that's how I coped I did that for 10 years and it didn't help at all. It made things 100 times worse. And, that hole. I'm glad I'm out of it.
Yeah, and then you go deeper and deeper into your defense mechanism, and you think that you're defending yourself, but at the end of that game, you just feel lonelier and more tired and less healthy, and so then the unhealth begets more unhealth, and it turns into an addiction of playing video games and staying isolated, and then it degenerates from there. Okay, so you can see that defense mechanisms lock us down into our psychological prisons. And how do we break free? We've got to process the pain, the indignation, the anger, the betrayal, the hurt, the everything, all of those nasty feelings that have been shoved down there and defended against and anesthetized and medicated. And I don't know, we're really, really clever as human beings. We just know how to defend ourselves, but not really, because we end up in psychological prison. And then we've got to break out.
And I was going to recommend people to go see your therapist, talk to your office, because, I went to a therapist and he didn't believe me at all. And, he pointed the fingers at me 100% that, narcissism is 1% of the population. You're telling me that everyone in your house is like that. And then I would try to please him. And then, I went and saw another therapist. The therapist before him was, when they're kind of training, and she kind of quit on me, where she was just like, as long as you can't get better in the place that got you sick. So, do you think your program, is beneficial for people who are still stuck in this situation, or,
Well, look, okay, think about it this way, all right? We've got to look at the problem, which is the disconnect. We've got to look at the reaction to your disconnect, which is shutting down in your case. We've got to look at all the negative core beliefs that you put into your psyche. I call it the psychovirus. Like in your case, I would, it's like a psychovirus that sounds something like, if I don't please, I'm worthless. Okay. So
yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah.
I figured that you could. Okay, so we've got to unearth these nasty core beliefs, our dirty little secrets that we carry around, but we huff and puff and cover them up with defense mechanisms. Narcissists cover them up with their grandiosity And so we don't know. And I can't tell you, I'm thinking of a case, I'm sure I've talked about it. I'll just call it case number 9,999. Lovely gentleman who looked like the perfect human. He just was handsome and in shape, and he was successful and had a beautiful wife and a gorgeous daughter. And he was brought in by his wife, and she told me that if I don't do something with him, the next step is he's checking into the hospital because he's suicidal. And you just want to look at the guy, what? You know, really?
You?
Yeah, you know, and we discovered through the work that he was brought up as a human doing, okay? A human doing. So the parents didn't really relate to him at all. He had no relationship to the parents. It was just like cut the grass, dust the furniture, vacuum the carpet, and that was the relationship. And so when his wife said, take out the garbage, he was triggered in his human doing core belief that if I don't do it right, if I don't do it right away, if I don't do this and that, then I won't be loved. And the guy literally wanted to die. And he said things to me that I couldn't believe was coming out of this perfect little human being that looked like everything was going well. And his core belief.
So many gifts.
So, right, underneath all of that, the Armani suit was this horrible core belief that sounded like I'm a piece of shit and I am better off dead.
Right. Then living on the edge of a bubble like that's going to pop and fall in any second. He's just like, you know what? Just take me down. I'm sick of living on this bubble skin. I mean, yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's one. I don't want to say it's beautiful, but that's really touching to me. That's your story.
I mean, I've met so many amazing people, and once we start dismantling the lies, you could just see the life force. And then when we tap into their indignation and they start opening their eyes and understanding that they've been reinforced for this human doing thing, and once they start reaching in and getting in touch with the anger and the hurt and the disappointment that was inflicted on him by being put in this, again, a Cinderella role, just like with Laurie, okay? And once the system was busted and he could see that he ingested these core beliefs and they were based on a family system gone wrong, and that he could now be the cause of part 2 of his life. He didn't have to buy in. One of my favorite lines in my book, I'm so glad I wrote it in there, is you've got to identify it, meaning those psychovirus lies, rather than identify with it. Does that make sense?
That's wonderful. You're giving me a lot to think about. I can't wait to get into touch with my own shining heart.
Yeah, and grab a copy of the PDF of the book, and you guys share it on Facebook. Okay, it's free. One of my goals really is to heal human disconnect, and really the mind map was designed to heal global disconnect. It was called Join the Human Race, Healing Global Disconnect. I had great big global aspirations, which I still do. It's just that we have to do it on an individual basis. So when we're looking at countries that are disconnected from countries and at war with each other, and we look at all the racism in the world and all the isms, we've splintered off into a bunch of isms, okay, and we're about to explode. What is that? What is that? So what it is, from a mind map perspective, is these childhood wounds that just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then festered, and then created family disconnect, societal disconnect, national disconnect, and global disconnect. So this is an ugly thing gone viral. I mean, it's like the psychological coronavirus, as far as I'm concerned.
It's a huge hill. It's been there forever, and I applaud you on your work, and I really think you're going to make a dent. And if not a dent, you're going to plant a lot of seeds in a lot of people.
I sure hope so, because before I sputter out, I want to leave. I want to leave the next generation with something. And one of my goals is to get this mind map into the school system and to get it into the prison system, because the prisoners sitting there are at the effect of a huge system gone wrong. And maybe they could sit there and break out of their psychological prison first before they're released from prison. What do they have to lose? Okay. And the kids, instead of that they're stupid and they're incompetent and they're a loser and they're ugly and they're not worth it and they shouldn't have been born, maybe they will learn that these are lies and they're poisonous and they could lead to suicide. Okay. So got to get them on the preventative end, and then got to get them where it's just about too late, right? Both sides of the spectrum and the general population. So seriously, grab a copy of it, post it on your Facebook or wherever, send it to your friends. It's just so easy. You just forward and then they could read it. And I don't know of any better way to spread the word than by a free book. You know, it doesn't cost anything, so why not? So I'd like people also to subscribe to the channel, okay? If you like what I'm talking about and you're interested in getting a system gone wrong into a 80-degree turnaround, subscribe, and I will always be talking about some kind of a human disconnect or some kind of a way that childhood injuries warp us and warp our sense of self. So I very much appreciate you calling in, and feel free to reach out to the clinic. And all of you feel free to reach out to the clinic. And I will personally, if not work with you myself, I will match you with somebody on the team that I think would be appropriate for your particular need. Okay, so thank you so much for being vulnerable and calling in. And so step number 1, do not enter that toxic system, pull out, do your own healing. And then I don't think you're going to choose the same way.
Thank you so much, Dr. Judy. You have a great night.
You do the same. Okay. And thank you everybody for good night. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and feel free to take advantage of our 15-minute free consultation. And I also have the Mind Map video series, which you can purchase, which is a beautiful breakdown of the mind map. And I lecture straight through from the introduction to panel 1 through 9. And it comes with a journal, and this is all a download. So don't wait for anything in the mail. Okay, people say, when is my mind map journal coming? When is my video coming? Well, no, we don't do discs anymore. You code in, you download it. It's really easy, and then it just connects all the dots and pulls it all together, and then you can just see this whole system turn around, and then you will be a part of the shift. So thank you so much for those who have been listening and calling in. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Good night, everybody. And if you've enjoyed my show, please subscribe to my channel. If you need help, please call the number below. And if you've enjoyed my show, please subscribe.